All right, guys. How y'all doing? Got to wake you up a little bit, right? That music woke us up. I tell you what, though, those songs, man, God puts it on your heart. And I'm going to cry because I'm like, Brett. But when the connection of the songs that are going, man, it just glorifies, right? So I just want to start off by saying, man, there's a song on there that hit me, The Foundation. And so that's something I want to talk about to us today. If you don't mind, am I still off? If you don't mind, I feel like it feels good that we have these problems because I'm like, oop. All right. Whoa. Hope that wakes you up. Well, if you all can believe it or not, at one point I was a kid too. I know I don't look like it with the lost hair and the beard, but at one point I was a kid. And what I want to start off tonight, because I don't know a lot of you, I want to tell you a little bit about my childhood. I want to start off with that, right? And I'm going somewhere with this. I just want to tell you a little bit about what I went through, okay? Growing up, both my parents, we went to a church. We were Baptists. We went to a church called Friendship Baptist Church, and it was an inner city church. My grandfather was a deacon. My grandmother taught a Sunday school class. My mother taught a youth class, and my dad was a singer. And so, man, we had this church thing going, right? And so we were going to church, and man, everything was good. And as I was in Sunday school one day, and I remember that, man, we're going to church. My mom and dad are going to church. I guess this is the right thing to do. And I remember asking the Sunday school teacher, well, what does it take to get to heaven? And she told me, well, you don't have to worry about that because I know your parents, I know your grandparents. So you don't have to worry about, you're going to be okay. And I thought, okay, as a young Christian boy, that's how I felt. I'm going to be okay, right? Because my parents brought me into this world. My parents are the ones who feed me. My parents are the one who takes care of me. I live in their house. So why wouldn't that be the way? So I'm fine with that. And I'm going with that because it's up to my parents to get me where I need to be. And I know that, man, they're going to church and doing stuff, so we must be doing the right thing, right? It says, so my parents decided to have us, and here's something I want to point out too. My grandmother on my father's side, she played the piano on Sundays. And I want you to catch this. She played the piano on Sundays, but the thing for her is she was what they call a 7-day Adventist. And so a 7-day Adventist is they go to church Monday through Saturday, and Sunday's the Sabbath. And they're not supposed to work. Matter of fact, they're not supposed to do anything till sundown as of Saturday night, okay? So on the Sabbath day is a day of rest that we're taught, but on Sunday is a day of rest, but on Sunday is the day that my grandmother would go to work. And I want you to keep that in mind because even though she went to church, she thought working for God was the right thing. That's all she needed to do, right? As long as I'm doing something for the Lord, man, it's good. It doesn't matter. And all these things I'm telling you about are based on what we would call religion, okay? We're not really getting the big picture. If I can go further on, it says, I want to say here that at the age of 12, my parents get a divorce. My dad's still singing in the church. My mom was kind of lost. They were both doing very well in their jobs and all that, but my dad's still singing in the church. He's still glorifying God, but he left us. And I was kind of looking at that, how could you do that, So he leaves us. My grandfather was what they call a Mason, which is a special little thing, religious thing. And once again, I'm going to point out to you all that it's because of that. They were focusing on what they could do for themselves in a religion. It says the problem I had with this, sorry, I want to go here. It says, if I can fast forward, my mother really never got it together. She was searching. My dad was doing his thing. My mother was doing her thing. I began to fall away from the church. I began to look at church as something that actually broke up families instead of bringing families together. I began to think of, if that's how I'm going to get to heaven, if I got to live this kind of life, I don't want to deal with it. I want to do this. But to be honest with you, I really don't think they understood. If you can go to a church and they tell you the best way to get to heaven is because of what your parents did, man, that should open your eyes up. But if everyone else is doing it, man, you think it's the right thing. You won't catch the difference because everyone else is doing it if there's no one who can show you that truth. So the reason for why I wanted to tell you all that today is because the thing I couldn't answer, the thing I couldn't understand, God was trying to bring it to my attention. So I can fast forward a little bit more. I met my wife. I met this beautiful, hot lady as a teenager because we did get married. She was 18, I was 20. But man, when I saw her, I was like, wow, she's everything I wanted at that age for a woman, a girl. And so I we started dating, we started getting serious, and man, you know what? She's going to church. She was Catholic. And I'm like, I don't know. My mom is now, she's brokenhearted. She's searching for God in a way that brings her power. She went to a non-denominational church. And when she went to this non-denominational church, what she started looking for was power, the gifts of God. Still not getting the big picture. She's looking for the gifts of God. My dad's still singing in church, and I meet a Catholic girl. Now, I can tell you this is crazy mixed up. And I don't know the answer because I was never taught the answer. And so as all this is going on, I thought going to church is okay because I think she's cute. And so I started going because she's going, and guess what? I didn't have a family. And so I met her, and man, now her family's going to church. She's going to church. And that, for me, was all it took, was all that it meant. I went to church because of someone else. I was told, man, I'm going to heaven because of someone else. And so everything that I did was based on what I depended on someone else to do. And so I want to tell you all this, and I'm bringing this up. I put my mother to the side one day, and I tell her, Mom, I'm not going to go to church with you anymore because I've been going with Carrie. And man, me and her, her family goes. And so I'm going to this Catholic church, and I think I'm going to commit. And she pulled me to the side, and she goes, I thought I taught you better. And I was like, yeah, you taught me to go to church. I really wanted to tell you didn't teach me anything. But she was soul searching, and I didn't understand that because of her broken heart. She didn't know that Christ was all she needed. And so she pulls me to the side, and she tells me, I thought I taught you better than that. And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, Brian, I just want to ask you this. Do you understand the foundation on which that church was built? And I said, no, I didn't. But I tell you what, I took that to heart. I didn't know what the foundation of church was built. I didn't know what the foundation of church was, period. All I knew was what you all did, and I followed it. And all I saw was things being broken apart. And I didn't really want much to do with that. But man, if I got with this girl, which I did, I married, by the way. I wasn't just testing that. I did marry her. Been together for 28 years. But with that, man, I took that to heart. And so when I took that to heart, I started going to church with her. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of starting to pay attention to what everything's going on, right? And as I'm paying attention to what's going on, I'm realizing these people don't even open up Bibles. I've seen a Bible. I've seen them in hotels when you go on vacations. You see them in the drawers. I've seen it sitting on our coffee table. And I've seen my mom pick it up, but she never encouraged me to read it. And I'm not trying to talk bad about my mom because I'm telling you this. She was the one that opened my eyes to the need for truth. So I never looked at her like that. But what I began to see was that, man, what is religion? Why do we go to church? And I was still young. But you all today, I know we go to a church that, man, is God-driven, and that's great. But I say all that because I was listening to Tony Godfrey, right? And he were taking this class, apologetics. And so Brett had called and he asked me, can you speak? And I was like, I feel like you, Dean. I don't like when people look at me. I just don't want you looking at me. So, but man, I got to do what God's asking me to do, right? No matter how I feel, it's not about me. And so I took on this, and I'm praying. I'm praying right now that, man, that this message is taught. But then God brought it to my attention. As a teenager, Brian, you did not know me. You had no clue of who I was. All you knew is what someone told you about me. And if they were wrong, you believed it. And if they were unsure, you took that for whatever it was. And so tonight, the very thing I want, and that's what touched me with that song, the second one, it's the foundation. Do we understand the foundation that which we believe in? in the Lord Jesus Christ. And what I mean by that is, man, a lot took place for us to have dependence and faith in Jesus Christ. It just wasn't a thing where God just snapped his finger and said, okay, whoever believes in you, man, those people are saved. Whoever has trust in you, man, those people are saved. Why? Because you're a king. You're a glorified man. And whoever believes in you, just like the world is glorified, you're glorified. And you're up in the third heaven. And guess what? If they believe on you, that's it. God didn't do that. No, God took the low way. God took Jesus Christ, his only son, and incarnated him, made him a man. And now, here, son, here's what I want you to do for some people that are going to accept you. Here's what I want to do for you, some people that are going to turn their backs on you. But this is what I want for you to do for them. Not only for them, for the creation that he made. And so what I want to do is I want to tell you, if you don't mind, take us back. And I want to remind us all of what that firm foundation is that we can trust in. Because I tell you what, if I could do it over again, if I would have had someone to come to me and tell me, you know what, Brian, if I asked the question, how would I get to heaven? Well, let me ask you something. Do you know anything about Jesus Christ? Man, that would have been a good conversation, wouldn't it? Not, well, I know your parents. Dean, I know your parents. Sonny, I know them. Man, you're good. Don't worry about it. You're good. No, it's deeper than that. And so as a teenager being young, man, there's a lot that we can learn from this, and there's a lot that we can take for it. So I want to tell you a little bit about our foundation and what it took for us to have that dependence on that. Because I tell you what, man, it blew my mind when I understood the truth. Because I can't believe someone would do that for me, for us. If I can show you this, a life full of purpose. Jesus dies on the cross. If you can go to slide 1. I'm going to tell you a story because we're in camp, right? In camp, you know, you used to get around the campfires and you would tell a story, and that story, you'd be intense. And I don't know how intense I'm going to be, but I just want to start off with this. And what I want to start off with just a few days before, Jesus is talking to his disciples. And as he's talking to his disciples, man, before this, he turns his face to, it says he turns his face to Jerusalem. And I want you all to be turning to Luke 22, 41 to 44. He turns his face to Jerusalem. And he tells his disciples, hey, look, listen. Man, I'm about to do something. And you all have been following me for this time. And this night, well, you're not going to be really pleased with what I'm going to do. And most of you are probably going to run away. Because I told you I'm the promising Messiah. And now this shepherd is, man, you know what? I'm going to go through some things that's going to probably shame you. And you're going to run. He tells his disciples that. But don't worry, he tells them, he says, but I've prayed for you, right? And he has this prayer. And then Jesus takes 3. He takes James, Peter, and John. He's always taking those 3 somewhere. And he takes them, and it says here, and I'm going to read it to you here. It says, and he was withdrawn from about a stone's cast and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will be done, but thine be done. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and sweat as was great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Now, I want you to take a moment. I want you to think about that. Because this was a journey that, even though he was prepared to do from the day he was born, now is the time to live it. And man, he had to take a moment and think. Now, there's a great controversy about this because there's some that says he was fearful because of what he was going to go through. And then some say he was fearful because he was going to be separated from the Father. Now, I want to make this clear, and I want to make this important. I want you to understand that either way, if you sweat drops of blood being separated from God, can you imagine what that must be like? If he's going to take that moment, it's that serious. So why do we take it so lightly? Why do we look at it as if to say, man, we got another day to live. We can do anything we want to do. But Jesus says, no, just to have that moment, even though I'm going to raise from the dead, Father, being separated from you for a moment, man, that's agonizing. But we play with it, right? We play with it and we say, hey, you know what? I've heard people say, well, if I'll go to hell, I'll be with hell with my buddies. No, that's not how we should look at that. So as he goes through there, he prays. And I'm reading this from Luke, because from Luke, Luke is written from a book. If I could say this to you, Luke is written from Jesus in the flesh. And so with Jesus being in the flesh, one of the things that happened to him is, it says that he agonized in the garden, and as he prayed, it says an angel came and strengthened him. And I want you to notice that, because as a man, as we go through things, we have to remember, you know what? We may go through things, but one thing we can be certain of is that, man, even in our deepest situation, it says that an angel came and strengthened him. So even when we feel like we're alone and we're lost, we have Jesus Christ, our Savior. We have an angel of the Lord being with us at all times, helping us through, strengthening us. So we have to remember that as we go through that. And my first point is this. We can go to that. Go to the next one. At times we all undergo trials, but not because we want to suffer, but because we want to obey God. I can't tell you that because you believe in Jesus Christ that your life is going to be great. But I can tell you there's a glory day coming. There's an eternal that's going to happen that's going to be glorifying. And sometimes we go through trials because of what we do, and sometimes we go through trials because how God wants to strengthen us and build us up in a way that we can depend on Him and we can trust in Him, knowing that we will get through it. So at times we all undergo through trials, but not because we want to, but because we want to obey God. Are you willing and wanting to obey God no matter what the circumstance? I tell you, when I didn't know anything about this, I went through a trial. And man, as I look back as a kid, when I tell you my parents got divorced and I went back through all that, one of the things I said to myself was, man, you know what? When I look back, I see this was all to bring me to this point. This was all for a purpose. And so I had my nose up. And I tell you this, a lot of people say I was a material person. Well, we had a lot and I lost it all. So I spent a long time trying to get it back. But then I realized I didn't need it. All I needed was Christ. And He'll supply everything, right? So I didn't need all these things. Even though I wanted to be cool like the cool cats. I was kind of cool. But I wanted to be cool like the cool cats and I wanted to do all these things. Man, I wanted back what I had in the flesh. And God said, if I keep you going that path, man, you'll never see me. You'll never understand and have a need for me. So I feel like I went through these things to get me to this point, to understand that what He did for us was great, right? What He did for us was great. It says here in point 2, as Jesus was going through the garden, I'm going to leave this up for you. As Jesus went down to pray, as He was kneeling down to pray, it says that Judas came up to Him. And as Judas came through the garden, he came up to him and kissed him. And it's ironic to me that he kissed him, because kissing in those days and kissing even today in certain countries, when they kiss you, well, you know, it's a greeting. It's a good gesture. It's not something that's negative. It's not something that's bad. It's a greeting that's to say to each other, man, hey, hello, how you doing? Yeah, a sign of peace. But in this case, it wasn't peace, it was betrayal. And I ask you today, how many times and how many of us, and you know what, we're kids. I understand. I was a kid once. I was going to church for all the wrong reasons, because I didn't really get it. But I want us to get it, and I'll tell you what, I don't want us to have any empty gestures. Is there anything that you do that you're going to church and you're saying to yourself, man, I do that? Man, God's saying, hey, I don't need that. The interesting thing about Judas was this. When they were having the supper, listen, when they were having the supper, what was interesting to me is that Jesus was calling it out the whole time. Jesus was saying, hey, man, one of you guys are going to betray me. You know what? They had a debate on who it was that was going to do it. Well, was it me? Is it me? And Judas was like, even Judas said, is it me? You see, to the world, man, we can fake it good. We can go to church and we can smile and we can tell the person who we need to tell that's important, that we know is important. We can make them think, man, you know what? I love the Lord. Lord is good. I love Him. Man, I love Him. You can go walk down the street. Hey, God bless you. I love you. But then when you get home and your mom says, hey, did you do those dishes like I asked you? Man, no, Mom, I didn't. I didn't do the dishes. Hey, did you take out that trash? No, I didn't feel like taking the trash. Did you take out the trash? Or you're playing your video games and they're, hey, did you do this? And you're like, Hey, I'm playing, Mom. Leave me alone. You ever gone through that? Man, and I tell you what, we all, I mean, I've gone through it, so I'm not blaming you, because I went through that, and there were times, man, I'm going to tell you something, me and my mom didn't really get along, because I blamed her for her leaving. I didn't get it. So I want to tell you something. Man, what Christ went through for us to deny him like that, man, he doesn't look at that very well. Maybe because he's been through it. Maybe because he knew, hey, you know what? I've been through this. And guess what? That gesture was part of putting me on the cross. So I don't like it. But the good thing is we can learn better from it and we can change from that. Because guess what? That gesture there, man, the grace of God knows that's going to happen. And that's the beauty of it all. God's grace. God's grace knows this is going to happen, but guess what? Today, you can change it. Tomorrow, if you wake up, you can change it. The day after that, if you wake up, you can change it. As long as you're here today, every day you wake up, it's a new day to make that change, to make that difference, to say to the Lord, you know what, Lord, I'm going to follow you today, and I'm going to follow you to the best of my ability because I know what you've done for me. And I tell you what, that walk you did, that garden moment, shedding that blood, if you feared, man, that was for me. And that means something. That should mean something. It says here in Luke, and this is how God feels about it. I got to find that. Do you have that? Do I have that on there? Nope. It says here, I'm going to go back. Sorry. In Hebrews 5:7-8. This is what I just want to read this, and I want to go back to this. It says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard in that he feared, though he were a son, yet learned the obedience by the things which he suffered. And that goes back to sometimes we go through things suffering. Empty gestures, we want to change. As Jesus begins to go through this, they took him away. Now, once again, this is the Bible, and it marvels me on these things when I read the Bible. But here's something I want to point out. When we read, and I don't know if you all know this, but in Mark, he's considered a Messiah. He's considered a king. I mean, in Matthew, he's considered a king. In Mark, he's considered a servant. In Luke, he's considered a man. And in John, he's considered God. And so all these gestures mean something. So when I read this, I looked up Gethsemane when he was in the garden, right? Only 2 times it came up. Gethsemane. I mean, what Gethsemane means oil press. And so the oil press means, man, he's going to go through some stuff. And the only time I saw that was in 2 times that was in Matthew and Mark. And so that kind of got me thinking, well, what else does it say? So in here it says, in Luke, when he's in the garden, it says that an angel came to him. So as man, we have an angel that comes to us when we're in time of need. Now this is just something I'm looking at. I can't say this for out. I haven't studied it fully. But in John, it doesn't talk about it at all. As God, he didn't need any of that. Didn't talk about it at all. And so I want us to bring that, I want to just bring that up because I think for me, man, there's something into that, right? There's something to that. It says here, Jesus is led away and put on a series of hearings, carefully controlled to accomplish the death of Jesus. The verdict was already decided. There were certain legal procedures that were necessary, but they weren't right. And so as he goes to that, he goes through 6 times. First he goes to Ananias. If you can go to the next slide. First he goes to Ananias in John 8:13. Ananias was a popular guy. He used to be the high priest, but he wasn't anymore. But his son-in-law was, which is Caiaphas. I'm going to say his name wrong. So he went there first. He went to Ananias. Second, he went to the high priest at that time. Third, he went to the Sanhedrin, which is a group of men. And so, I'm just showing you the trail that he went through. In Mark 15:1, it says, and straightway in the morning the chief priest held a consultation with the elders and the scribes. and the whole council, and bound Jesus and carried him away and delivered him to Pilate. The next day he went to Pilate. Now all this happened within 18 hours. See, Jesus was never going to make it out of what he was going through. And here's what's interesting to me. The men who were so willing to take him out were the holy men and the learners, the ones who are learned of this, who make up the law. See, religion does one thing for us, and what religion does is it tries to keep Jesus out. Doesn't want Jesus in. And I want to ask you, have you ever wanted to sit on your own throne? Be your own boss? We want Jesus out. We don't want Jesus in because we don't want to give any excuse. Don't think they didn't know who he was, because they did. And I tell you what, that's something that we have to be mindful of, and man, it gets us every time. But we can change that. Go to the next one. You can go past that one too, sorry. He went back, okay, and so finally he went back to Pilate. Now here's the thing with Pilate. As Jesus is tired, he's worn out. Pilate is the one, he looks at him, he goes, this man hasn't done anything. I don't even know why we're worried about, we got to let him go. They're like, no, we want to crucify him. He's like, no, we got to let him go. And so as they take him away, I want to read this. As they take him away, he prepares himself for the cross. Now, as he goes to the cross, I want to say this. Is this where my slide is next? Okay. As he goes to the cross, I want to say in Psalms 21, 1 through 20, I want to read this to us. I'm going to read it on here. It says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? Oh my God, I cry the daytime, but thou hearest not. And in thy night season, am I not silent? But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praise of Israel. Our fathers trusted in thee, they trusted in and didst deliver them. They cried unto thee and were delivered. They trusted in thee and were not confounded. But I am a worm. I am no man, a reproach of men, and despised of people. All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip. They shake the head, saying, he trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. But thou art he that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breast. I was cast upon thee from the womb. Thou art my God from my mother's belly. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. Many bulls compass me. Strong bulls, Bashan, have beset me round. They gape upon me with their mouths, and ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like, I'm going to say that word wrong, parchment. And my tongue cleaveth to my jaws. And thou hast brought me into the dust of death. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierce my hands and my feet. May I may tell all my bones, they look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. But not thou far from me, O Lord. O my strength has thee to help me. Deliver my soul from the sword, dealing from the power of the dog. Now, if I can ask you this, what does that sound like? It sounds like exactly what he went through, right? So I want to get this picture in your head, but I want to show you this clip too. Yeah, I was going to say, can you guys see this? Sorry.
I know exactly what this is. Oh,
I want you to listen to what he says.
Did you ask who I live so you could say the keep the truth? little their life and say, no. So much for love.
Turn. I wanted to show you that clip because I couldn't show you the clip I wanted to show you because you guys are teenagers and this is the Passion of the Christ. But I wanted to show you that. I wanted to show you that because here's what I wanted you to see. Man, Satan has a stronghold on us and it's crazy, right? But with that, I want to show you this, that one of the things she said was so much for love. Man, everything Christ did for us was because of love. Jesus freely offered his life for us, dying on the cross. It says here that our place, he crossed our places, taking our wrongdoing upon himself and saving us from the consequences of sin. It was Jesus who did that. And I want to tell you, and on this it has here, man, he did it for love. Now, she's saying that Satan wants you to believe it wasn't because of love, but he did it for love. And so when I look up love, the first thing I found was it was lovest. So lovest. The first mention of that is in Genesis. You have that one?
22.
Yep. 22:2. And so at this point, what's happening is, and he says, and I take them, thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moab, and offer him for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell of thee. Now we see this first son of love, and guess what we see it at in Genesis? Now what is the thing about Genesis? This is the first time we read about a son in Abraham. And so what was going on there was that Abraham was going to offer his son. And as he was going to do that, one of the things that took place was as God was telling him to offer his son, he had no problem. He did it. He didn't do it, but he was taking his son up to get sacrificed. And as he was taking him up, God tells him to stop. And as he says stop, he tells him, hey, as he says stop, now I know that thou lovest me more than thy son. And he had a ram caught in the thicket. And so I look at that and I remember when they put the thorns around his head as a reminder to show us. It's interesting that the first mention of love is found in the Bible. And God had called it on Abraham and God now shows it to us. He did it because of sin. The first mention of sin is this: if thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. You see, sin has a power over us. First of all, we were born into sin. Second of all, if we give in to sin, it enslaves us. And we think that it can't, but it can. And so God is telling us, hey, right now, we're born into sin, but if we accept him as his Lord and Savior, we now have a choice. In Romans 6:16, it says, know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or obedience unto righteousness. We want to choose righteousness. You see, our true identity, sorry, I'm going to move up. You see, when we were ruined, sorry, go to the next slide. When we were ruined, he rescued. When we were dead in sin, he gave us eternal life. When we were under judgment, he gave us deliverance. When we were separated, he wanted a relationship. So God became man for us, and God put himself on the cross for us because he didn't have to. But like I said, for that is what changed my mind. And what it did for me was it made me think more about who he was and what he did. And because of that, man, that made me want to understand, and now I know what my true foundation is. And I want you to be reminded of that because Satan's number one rule is this for us. In 1 Corinthians 4:4, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believeth not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. So now we know that Satan wants to keep us blinded. He wants to keep those unsaved. He wants to keep them there. But now we have a foundation that we can build on. This is the first night, and I just want to give us that. I know it was a little boring for us, but what I want us to do is I want us to have an understanding of what that foundation is and what it cost for us to have that freedom. I want us to understand that with that foundation that we can trust in, it was because of love that set us there. I want us to understand that because of a sin nature that we were born with, God was able to free us from that. And so now we have the opportunity we have the opportunity, and through the willingness of being obedient to the Word of God, to have to see that His purpose-filled life was meaningful for us. And because of that, we should have a desire to do something about that. And so we can't do that thing. We can't do those things on our own. So I'm gonna end it here for tonight, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just give us that foundation. And tomorrow we'll talk about 2 other things. But I want us to have that. I want us to go with that. And I do appreciate you all listening to me. Like I said, I know it's a little slow tonight. I promise you, I'm gonna get more into it. But I just want us to leave with that, because that was something that changed my life, and I hope it changes yours to have that. So I thank you.